Welcome to Mental Health and Faith, a Closer Look. I'm Carolyn Cooper, and my ministry name is Mental Health Connect. My mission is to offer encouragement and to help you find your way into this complicated world. The episodes will feature guests such as authors, pastors, mental health professionals, and many other individuals who have something to contribute to this conversation. I also will post what I consider to be teaching episodes, where we dig into scripture or we dig into a topic related to our Christian walk and our mental health and wellness. There will be links and resources in the show notes. You'll want to check those out. Now sit back and enjoy the show. We're so glad you've joined us today. On today's podcast, I will be talking with Jane. Jane is going to share some of her story with us, and I think you will be very inspired by the events that she's been through and how she continues to trust in the Lord for her ongoing recovery. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Carolyn.
Well, the first question I want to ask to get us started is give us an idea of how your faith has really impacted your journey.
My faith has impacted my journey because I had to learn to depend more on God after losing my job in 2007. I called out to Him and knew that there was a reason why I could no longer go into that job, and he no longer wanted me to be there. And so I also learned to trust in Him slowly about what it was that He wanted me to do with my life. Probably the most difficult lesson for me was that I struggled a great deal with my self-worth and at times felt like there was nothing left as far as my self-worth. So I began to think about my purpose and what it was that the Lord would want me to do with my gifts. This is the reason, one of the reasons why I have become a mental health advocate, to encourage and educate people who are struggling with a mental illness, because I can relate to them.
I think that right there is probably what a lot of people experience when they have something unexpected come up in their lives, a mental illness or a tragedy of some kind, really anything that causes us to question where we are and where God wants us to be. And I think you described that really well. So you kept your faith throughout the experience, and here you are.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now I would like to backtrack and have you tell us your story so that we can hear what exactly you did go through in your journey.
I worked as an X-ray technologist for about 20 years, and I am 6 feet tall, and those last several years of working, developed low back pain and decided to have steroid injections into my back. And the first one did not work, and the second one, 3 days later, after the second injection, I went into a steroid rage while I was on the job. And the steroid rage, it kind of morphed or changed into a psychosis.
Can you give us a quick definition of what that means?
Yes, psychosis or a psychotic episode is when a person has taken a complete leave of reality. Mm-hmm. They are no longer living in reality.
And that's what happened to you that brought you to the hospital.
Correct? Well, towards the end of that evening is when I became psychotic.
Okay.
And I was down in the emergency room as a patient. And at 10:30 at night, because the ER staff could not find a psych bed, as they say, in Kansas City, I was transported by ambulance out to Cushing Hospital in Leavenworth, Kansas. And I was in the psych ward for 5 days. It's probably the most harrowing experience that I've ever been through in my life. After my first night there, I woke up and looked around. I was in my scrubs and looked around. I was in this sitting room, and there were other patients there. And I thought to myself, where in the world am I? And started reciting the 23rd Psalm. Finally became acclimated to the hospital or to the ward, and spoke with some of the other patients. There was a doctor there, a psychiatrist, that came, I think, nearly every day. And so they would take patients in one at a time and just reevaluate them. After this experience, after I was discharged, and I eventually went back to work, there was still a problem. There was something very wrong with me, with my mind. I believe that steroid injection probably stirred up this bipolar disorder that I've had for who knows how long. It's hard to say. So I did work for 3 or 4 months, but my behavior became worse. I had some moments where I was raging, and other times just talking very loudly and just very obnoxious. And they finally did have to terminate me. Next to losing my mother and my father, it's probably been the most painful thing that has ever happened to me in my life. Not only losing my job, but the reason why I lost my job. And it was something that I had to accept.
Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Jane, what makes this psalm so special to you? Are there certain words or phrases that have special meaning?
Probably the beginning and the end. All of it is excellent, and it can be very soothing. But the very last part, where it talks about goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
So that gives you kind of an eternal perspective of what you're going through.
Yes.
Because and I also have a mental illness, and we know that this world is only temporary.
Yes.
So when we are done with this life and we're rejoicing in heaven, we won't have these problems or these issues at all. We will
Amen.
be, yes,
Mm-hmm.
And that's a wonderful promise that we hear in that psalm, too. Jane, we both know that mental illness sometimes is a family experience. Would you like to share a little about your family experience with mental health?
Yes, I will. I do know that some forms of mental illness are hereditary, and our father um, was in the Second World War. He was a bombardier, and of course went in at a very young age, probably 18 or 19 years old. But during his adult years, he began to suffer from depression and alcoholism, and at age 49, he did die by suicide. After the experience that I have been through, I have learned some more reasons why he was behaving the way he did, and I will always believe that being in the war was a contributing factor to his clinical depression.
Right.
So, unfortunately, like you said, in families, sometimes it can be passed on.
That must have been difficult as a child because you were like a teenager or something when he
Yes,
passed away.
yes. I was 16,
Mm.
and my brother was 14, and my sister 18.
Mm.
I remember probably about a week after he died, I went back to school, and I remember sitting there in class, and I thought to myself, you know, my dad's dead, and I just wish the whole world would stop what they were doing just for a few days and pay attention to me.
Oh,
As a teenager, this is what I was thinking at the time.
that really gives us a lot of insight, Jane, because probably most of us have known someone or known of someone or had a friend of a friend or that kind of a relationship where someone has died by suicide. And a lot of times we don't really think through how much care and compassion they need because that's
Yes. And back during that era, of course, the professionals, it was handled in a much different way than it is today. There's a lot more openness and awareness, and they bring the family in together to communicate with everyone.
and like you said, things have changed. I think just overall stigma of mental illness has grown less. There's still a lot of work to do. Now, I want to go back to your story, and what I'd like to find out from you is what is it like to have bipolar disorder? We may have people listening that don't really understand what that's like. Would you be able to share some about that?
Sure. Bipolar disorder is a strange, rather unpredictable malady, really. Sleep is a huge factor, getting adequate sleep so that you can concentrate and stay focused on tasks and other things that you need to do. Sometimes there's irritation when maybe there doesn't need to be quite so much irritation. There's a learning curve, especially with the medication. Doctors will try different medications until they get, you know, the one that's those that are going to work the best for you.
So it's not just a case of saying, hey, I have this and here's how I treat it. It's kind of individualized.
Yes, it is. And just different things. There's different signs or symptoms like restlessness and fatigue sometimes.
Here's a definition of bipolar disorder by the National Alliance on Mental Illness. That's NAMI. Bipolar disorder is a mental illness that causes dramatic shifts in a person's mood, energy, and ability to think clearly. People with bipolar experience high and low moods, known as mania, and depression, which differ from the typical ups and downs most people experience. Symptoms and their severity can vary. A person with bipolar disorder may have distinct manic or depressed states, but may also have extended periods, sometimes years, without symptoms. A person can also experience both extremes simultaneously or in rapid sequence. If left untreated, bipolar disorder usually worsens. However, with a good treatment plan, including psychotherapy, medications, a healthy lifestyle, a regular schedule, and early identification of symptoms, many people live well with the condition. Jane, can you share any more about your life with bipolar?
As far as living with the illness, it does not define me. It is
That's
not
great.
who I am, and there are other things about me.
That's great. That is a great way to sum that up. So, whatever you've been through in life, you can't be defined by things that happen to you.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, how are you defined, Jane?
I believe what defines me is my relationship with Christ.
Yes.
And who I am in Him and He in me.
Mm-hmm.
And picking up my cross each day and following Him.
Mm-hmm. And it's not easy.
No,
it's
not.
It requires work and perseverance, but with God on your side, it gives you a little bit more motivation to keep going. Well, Jane, I've really enjoyed hearing your story today, and thank you so much for sharing. I hope our listeners here have gotten a little more insight of what it's like to live with a mental illness and some of the things that can happen when you have a mental illness. And your history of your family is very beneficial to hear. If you have family members who struggle with mental illness or other mental health conditions, make sure you're also watching yourself. Keep track of your moods. See how you sleep. How is your appetite? I mean, there are lots of things you can watch about yourself that can help you determine if you might be at risk or if you have a mental illness that hasn't been detected yet. We want you to be safe, and we want you to be healthy. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and don't forget there's even more information in the show notes. You'll want to check those out. Now please join the conversation on mental health and faith. Leave your comments or send me an email with your thoughts, questions, or suggestions. I really look forward to hearing from you. May God bless your journey.